I thought the only thing keeping me moral was my relationship with God. I remember doing many sermons where I would say, back when I was an evangelical pastor, saying things like, without God, I would be a ship on the seas without a rudder, or, without God, I would be unhinged. Without God, I would be pillaging and like just, completely immoral. And I really thought that. Like, I genuinely, really, 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 really thought that. And it's not been until now that I'm an atheist have I realized, oh, like, I'm not a bad guy. Because that's what Christianity teaches you, right? That you're bad, you're wrong, you're broken, you need a savior, you're corrupt. And there's a verse in Genesis. That's awesome. There's a verse in Genesis that talks about um, every intention of man's heart was evil. And I really genuinely thought that my relationship with God was the bridle. It was the bridle in my mouth, keeping me from living a completely unhinged, wild life. Um, anyway, hey, my name's Timmy Gibson, former fundamental evangelical Bible thumping, tongue talking, Holy Ghost rolling pastor. Did that for 30 years. Spent 48 years as a Christian, and now I would say I'm agnostic, but I always say I'm atheist as it relates to the Bible God. Which is funny, right? When you think about all the Christians out there are atheist as it relates to Thor and Zeus and Poseidon and every other god throughout history, and even the Hindu gods. Christians are atheists to the Hindu gods, atheists to Allah, the Muslim God. Christians are atheist about every other god except for their God, because obviously their God is the one true God. Clearly. Anyway, back to this morality thing. That's been. I was just talking to my wife about this morning. She goes, "Did you really think that? Did you really think it?" I said, "Yeah, I really did. I thought that the governor of my life, the governor, like when like if you buy a moped, I know this is dating me probably, but I had a moped way back in the day when I was like 14, and it had a governor on it, but I had some friends that knew how to finagle with it. Sometimes it's on go-karts too. But they knew how to finagle with it to take the governor off, meaning the top speed was set to 35. But if you knew the trick how to take that off there, it could go faster, right? And I really did. I felt like the governor on my life was my relationship with God. Like that, God was the thing that was keeping Timmy pure, for the most part. Um, and now, I don't believe in God. So what keeps me moral now? And this is a question that I would have loved to have had this kind of a conversation, but I probably wouldn't even have done it. Had this kind of conversation back when I was a believer with an unbeliever, because I've experienced both. Like, I've literally experienced life as a sold out, radical Christian, a follower of Jesus, and to now be atheist, and I still want to do good. I want to be good. I want to live honest. I want to be fair. I want to be charitable. I want to be kind. Um, I want to be a law-abiding citizen. Uh, I watched this documentary called Will and Harper on Netflix. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. I should probably do a separate video on it. Um, maybe I will, but just a precious video or movie, I guess, with Will Ferrell and his friend Harper. I cried probably 4 times during this movie. It just touched my heart. If you don't know anything about it, just search. If you have Netflix, if you don't have Netflix, which would be wild, find someone that does have Netflix and watch it. It's basically Harper is a trans woman. Making sure I'm saying this right, and she is a friend of Will's and has been a friend of Will's for like 30 some years, even before she transitioned. And it's just, genuinely, it's just precious. It's really just precious. I mean, like I said, I, I cried 4 or 5 times. My wife and I did. Um, just some of the things that Harper has faced as a trans woman, and this is her own words, so this is, this, I'm saying what Harper said. uh she's not passable, right? So, as an outsider looking in, Harper looks like a dude wearing makeup, heels, and a dress. I mean, that's what it looks like. And but Harper's heart is just so precious, and she's just so open and just sweet, and it's just, if you, like, I would almost say get Netflix just for 1 month, just to watch Will and Harper. It'll touch your heart, man. Um, and in fact, I don't know how it couldn't. If it didn't touch your heart, like, something's got to be wrong with you. If it doesn't touch your heart, something's got to be wrong. And so, as an atheist, why do I still have a tender heart? Why do I um, still value truth more than ever before? How is it that I still value morality and honesty and charity and kindness and wanting life to be fair as much as possible? Um, where's that come from? Right? You know, um, I mean, what is that, right? What is that? What is it? What is it within me that I want to be kind to people? I want to be fair. I want to be honest, even when people aren't watching, right? Even in the what do they say? You know, how would you be if no one was watching, or how would you be if you knew no one would find out? uh, to me, that really, that'll tell you what someone's made of, right? What do people do when no one's looking? And and again, I've said this many times. I'm no angel. Um, yeah, I've not lived my whole life as this little innocent angel, just always, doing the right thing, always, right? I would assume I'm like all humans. You go through life, you make mistakes, you learn lessons, you do things you shouldn't do, and you get caught, or you get, it backfires on you, or whatever, or just the guilt of doing something wrong. You feel bad about it and all that. So it was just such a shock to me. I don't know what else to say about the the way I felt as a believer, as a Christian, the way I felt about sin and goodness and God and and judgment and the penalty of sin and Jesus's death on the cross and like what I've come to understand is just none of that is necessary. None of that is necessary in order to live a good, honest life. And I mean, I know Christianity overall has affected our world in a good way in some ways. Um, Clearly, I mean, I think anybody would admit to that. I'm reading some history books right now. How the West Was Made is the book I'm reading right now. It's kind of dense, like it's heavy. It doesn't read as quick as my fiction books that I love to read, and it's so good. And I'm learning that wow, okay, Christianity has affected the culture of the West, obviously, for sure, in a pretty profound way. Clearly, that doesn't mean it has to be true, like actually a fact. All the stories in the Bible. Anyway, like I'm, cuss and discuss below. Like, let me know your thoughts. Like, what for, especially for those of you. I would say this: if you're a Christian watching this, I'd love to hear from you down below. As long as you're, kind about it. Do you think that you would be living a sinful life if it wasn't for Jesus or the Bible or a fear of punishment or fear of hell or do you think that you would be unhinged? Do you think like how I used to think that you would just be unhinged and uh, wild, you know, you know? Uh, I'm curious. I'm just so curious about that. I heard a video not too long ago. Richard. It was actually Christopher Hitchens. Uh, was he thinks that's despicable. He thinks it's absolutely despicable to say, God is the only reason that I'm not. God is the thing that's keeping me living moral. He's like he actually even said he goes I think what did he say? Basically, like I have more respect for you than that. He goes, I don't think that you would be a bad person if you weren't a Christian. I think that you would be much like the kind of person you are today. You'd be a good, honest person. And I just didn't view it that way. So anyway, if you are a Christian, let us know down below. Cuss and discuss. Do you think you would become unhinged and wild and pillaging villages and plundering? Like would you be stealing and just wild? Uh, or do you think you wouldn't, and why? I wonder what that is. And then I guess for those of you that are like me, you've deconstructed from your faith and you're either spiritual, not religious, or agnostic, or even atheist. Was that a shock to you too? Did you think when you were a Christian, did you think those that are outside of the church, or if you were outside of the church, did you think that you probably would be wild and unhinged and just wild and crazy and all that? I am curious. I am really genuinely curious what you had thought about that and how you view it now. Now, I guess this bears repeating. I think I've said this in the videos. Clearly, there were so many things that when I was a Christian, I thought were sin that I don't think are sin. I don't believe in sin. Clearly, that's a religious man-made concept. But you know what I mean by sin: doing things that are wrong, uh, like premarital sex is a sin according to some Christians. Masturbation, according to some Christians, is a sin. So clearly, things like that aren't sin, right? They're not wrong. Uh, so, so I guess when you're a Christian, there's things that you think are wrong that aren't wrong. And so, yes, I had premarital sex when I was a Christian. I have had premarital sex since not becoming, since leaving Christianity. You know, um, so that's always a funny thing. I probably have said this in a video, but I just want to say it here. I find it so fascinating, right? The Christian thinks it's wrong to have premarital sex, yet they have premarital sex. The non-Christian or the secular, whatever you want, the atheist doesn't think it's wrong to have premarital sex, and they have premarital sex. At the end of the day, they're both having premarital sex. What's the difference, right? What's the difference between saying, I think it's wrong, yet you do it? I don't think it's wrong, and I do it. I think the only difference is, the Christian deals with the guilt and the shame and all of this, and the clearly the atheist or the non-believer doesn't. I find that interesting, and that's another thing about this whole morality. Morals come from God. Listen, I just I'm not. I don't know all the arguments for that, but I do think that it is quite curious that it doesn't work. You know what I'm saying? Like I've heard someone say this. They said, if everybody would just become a Christian, like this world would be a better place. It's like, guys, I pastored a church of 300 people. Okay. In that church, there were people that went to jail, people that went to prison. One guy, 20-year sentence for embezzlement. Another person was, guilty of essay, and I think he's in prison for the rest of his life. Um, I mean, you know what I mean? Like there's no like if everybody if everybody was Christian, this world would be a better place. Like, no, it would not. There would still be every immoral thing that goes on in this world would still be going on if everybody was a Christian. In fact, I would say probably even more so for a lot of other reasons. I've done a video about the immorality of Christianity. I'll link it below. I'll link it below because it's one of my it's one of the most popular videos I have. In fact, if you go to my videos, click most popular, I think it's the most popular video I have about what's so immoral about Christianity. So I find it so curious how Christianity, they want to tie it with morality, and yet it's you I, it doesn't what's the word I'm looking, I'm a little bit lost in my thought. It doesn't support that. Like, you can say that, but then just like look, right? I mean, look at all the scandals by church pastors. It's like that, like, goodness gracious, like, we get our morals from what? From religion or from God or from Christianity? I don't think so. Just look around. Just look around. And just read the Bible, people. Just read the Bible. Some of the most immoral things, immoral people are in the Bible. And they were apparently men after God's own heart. Yet they murdered and stole wives and did all this stuff. And yet I remember when I was a preacher, man, I was exalting King David, and he's a murderer and a like a terrible dude. But his heart was right before God, right? His heart was right before God. That's one of the excuses Christians use. Well, my heart is right. My heart is right, which gives me permission to do whatever I want because my heart was right. My heart was right when I knocked off that quick trip. My heart was right. So, okay. All right. Hey, cuss and discuss below. I have a Patreon if you'd like to support me and support my work. I'd really appreciate that. As well as I do have a Facebook group if you are going through your own deconstruction or you're agnostic atheist. We'd love to have you. It's called Timmy's Deconstruction Community, and it's a free join. It's just a group. I think we've got about 500, 600 people in there now, and it's just a great community to be a part of, like-minded people. All right, guys, peace. Appreciate you.